In this episode of Building Skimmer, I cut the stringers, I explore an abandoned marina, I make a jig to cut scarves, and it's time to get gluing. G'day, my name is Aaron, an Aussie bloke with a funny Dutch last name. 20 years ago, I had an adventure sailing to the remote Torres Strait. Now, I'm building a 22-foot catamaran to recreate that adventure and have many more. Join me as I build my boat and get sailing again. As you guys saw in the last episode, I picked up Douglas fir for the stringers, and lo and behold, a good mate Scotty also dropped off his table saw the same day, pretty much. So legend Scotty. So now I've got to figure out how I'm going to set that up with an in-feed and an out-feed table. But Scotty, you're a top bloke. And Scotty also brought around the coffee, legend. But before I go to the effort of making a table for the table saw and an in-feed and an out-feed, because these things are 4.8 meters long, which is pretty hefty for one person to handle, I thought I'd see how the Ryobi cordless circular saw would go, ripping off some. So I'll put the battery in and we'll set the camera up and we'll see how it comes out. To make that cut with the circular saw as fair, as straight as possible, I've added a bit of MDF to the guide and I've just countersunk some threaded screws in there, a couple of nuts and some washers on the back, and that'll hopefully get a nice straight cut. I did allow for the thickness of the MDF and I've cut it at 18 millimeters instead of 24 or 25. So I'll adjust this and try that again. So the cordless circular saw is definitely cutting it, but it's slow, and I feel like if I try to do this whole stack of timber, it's just going to, ruin the tool. So I will figure out a way to set up an in-feed and out-feed for Scotty's little beastie here. Aftermath of just cutting one length of the Douglas fir. Holy smokes, that's a lot of dust to clean up. But the good news is that right there, I have 10 lengths of 3.3 meter long battens for my stringers, which I'll connect together. So 2 of those will make one stringer along the side of the hull. So there's enough for one side of the hull out of one piece. So I've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. So I should have definitely enough to do the hulls, and then there's all the other scantlings to do as well. But time for cleanup. Going for a bit of a paddle on the sup, get away from the garage for a little bit, and look what I found. A dead turtle. And we do see the odd turtle in these waters here, but yeah, I've never seen a dead one, and I tell you what, that thing stinks really bad. Poor little buddy. So right now, I've just gone for that paddle. I've seen that turtle, and I'm inside the abandoned Empire Bay boathouse / marina, which is pretty cool to go check out. This is obviously where they used to do work on outboards. It's a really greasy workbench there. You check that on eBay, someone would probably spend a couple $100 buying that. Old switchboard, double doors that used to open up. There would be some really good timbers in here that you could use. Apart from that, there's not much else you're going to salvage. Walking back out to the water side and up into the loft. Looks like where they used to keep their spares, some tools and things. And here's the view into the actual marina. It's not a very big marina. It does have a slipway, or it used to before they shut it down. Not sure why they shut it down. This is the map of Brisbane water, and this is Empire Bay in here where we are. And in there where you can see the little fuel pump icon, right there in the middle of the screen, that is where we are now. And to get out from here out to the Tasman Sea in the Pacific Ocean, it's quite a motor. You have to motor around here and then dodge these shoals, go under a bridge or go around this island here. It depends how high your vessel is. And then go under the bridge and then around these shoals here. And there's half-tide rocks which will catch out a lot of young blokes and newbies. And then you go out this way and then you're out into Broken Bay and Tasman Sea. This is how you get in and out. You got to squeeze in through this little gap here. Oh, right through that little gap there. Oh. Ooh, yeah, down through there. Maybe this is why they closed down. All care taken, no responsibility. That's a good way to treat your customers. Tour's over. Time to get back on the sup, paddle back to where I started from and get back to the garage. Down there on the floor is all my lengths of ripped up Douglas fir or Oregon, and now it's time to scarf join them. And for that, I'm going to get my circular saw and try and make a jig so I can do my 6-to-1 scarf cut on there as fast and as clearly as possible. So this is the jig I've made. It's basically some 6mm MDF, some offcuts of the Douglas fir, creating a channel, and then I've run my circular saw to create a relief cut here. I set my saw depth and it cuts a perfect 6-to-1 scarf every time. So I just put my piece in through here, circular saw on top, use the MDF here as a guide, does the cut. I'll show you how it works. So here's 2 lengths of stringer that I've cut using my circular saw scarf jig. No planing, no touching up whatsoever, and they marry up really well, and I'm more than happy with that bond and that fit. So the plan is to glue them up and then run the top here with the belt sander just to take off this roughness from the aged timber, and then I'll use my round over bit to put a radius on these outside edges. Some of the lengths I've cut have these knots, and I just don't want to risk it, so I'm going to cut either side of that and just not use that. And then I'd rather have a scarf there, which is just as strong as the wood, than having a knot in there and a potential weakness. All the stringers are now cut, and to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised I got so few lengths out of those 2 pieces of boards that I ripped up. The boards were about 145 by 45 millimeters, but there was heaps of knots through there. So by the time I ripped them all down to 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters, I'd lost probably a quarter to a third of my lengths. So lots of my stringers now have multiple scarves, which I'm all right with, but the scarves came out great. I couldn't have expected that process to go any better. So pretty happy with that. And now it's on to gluing them together. So ready to start epoxying. I've got some baking paper to put under the scarf so they don't stick to the concrete floor. I've got a whole bunch of clamps here, more than enough for 2 clamps for each joint. I have my scales so that I can measure out my weights, which I've got here in my cheat sheet, hardener and resin. I have my micro balloons, lots of cups over here, and I have my resin. I have a mixer, which is just one of those salad knives you take when you go camping or going to a picnic. And I have a brush here to pre-wet every surface with unthickened epoxy before I put the thickened epoxy down. So nothing left to it. Let's get mixing and start gluing. So that was 22 scarves all glued up and clamped, and they only used 22 grams of resin and 54 grams of hardener, and that's all I have left. So pretty happy with that. My whole plan with using my scales is to try and minimize my wastage, my epoxy wastage, as much as possible. So if that's all I have after that, happy with that. Now, we wait. All right, guys, that's it for this episode. Thanks again for watching, and a huge thanks to all the people that are subscribing and getting behind the channel and my Patreons, which is pretty awesome. Can't believe I have patrons now, so big thank you to you guys. If you wanted to get behind the building of Skimmer, there's some links in the description below. But until then, guys, I'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Cheers.